Hello again. For this third video I've already opened the program performance report that we saved at the end of the first video, and what I'm going to use this for is to establish some of our baseline numbers. Well, it's specifically the baseline number for the number of ROMO cases graded on the program during a set period, but also by individual graders. As I said earlier, the program performance report is a replacement effectively for the old annual report that was featured in earlier versions, so version 4 of OptoMize. The section I'm particularly interested in here is the section 5, the grading process. And when you click on the grading process, the first thing you come to is this grading summary table, and this is actually the part of the report that we're going to use. So I just want to expand this so I've got clear lines without text being cut off. So again, click on the small triangle up in the top left hand corner and then double click anywhere on one of the borders between rows, and that just opens it up so we can see the detail a bit more clearly. So in this left hand section we have grader, and graders are identified by their grading number rather than by name. So obviously one of the things you need to do before you proceed to try and process this data is to establish grading numbers for individual graders on your particular program. So realistically there are 3 graders on this program who regularly perform primary grading. That's grader 155, 179 and 180. As I say, they correspond with real people, those numbers do, and the 3 main primary graders. As well as telling you primary grading data, it will also show you arbitration data or secondary grading data, and it's got numbers, and then these numbers are associated with specific grade levels. So the one we're interested in obviously is this particular one here, which is ROMO. The first thing we really want to do is establish the total number of cases that were primary graded as ROMO during this period of time. Don't make the mistake of going down and looking at totals and using that number, because obviously that includes cases that were ROMO at secondary grading as well. So what you have to do is for each grader look along the primary grading row and then get the number there. So we have 1154 for grader 155, and then we have 556 for grader 179, and then we have 1108 for grader 180. Looking elsewhere, grader 135 did 3 ROMO cases in primary, so obviously you want to count those into your total, but you don't necessarily want to bother with analysing this particular grader's ROMO 10% QA, because obviously if they only graded 3 cases, it's unlikely that 10% will have been selected. In fact, what you're probably going to find is that none of these cases were actually selected for a QA. Okay, so I've added together these primary grading numbers and we've come up with 2,821 as the total number of primary grades during that period that were graded as R0M0. So as I say, that's the total number. If we switch back to the quality assurance report, the number of ROMO cases in here will obviously be those that were selected for quality assurance. However, there may be ROMO cases that also went direct from primary grading through to referral outcome grade. I'm thinking of cases that may have had a referable non-DR condition, for example, although they had no diabetic retinopathy. So just bear that in mind, that those cases are not included in this particular report. Okay, what I want to do next is begin to process the data in this QA report, and I do this by first highlighting this triangle up in the top left hand corner again, so the entire report is highlighted blue. I don't know if you noticed, but I've actually reduced the patient identifier from the full NHS number to a 5-digit number so that we can see that column now, but obviously these patients can't be identified other than within our own OptoMize system. So once you've highlighted the entire sheet, if you then go into the data tab along here, and in the data ribbon, if you select the filter button, and what that does, it places a little drop down arrow on each of those specific columns, which allows you then to start processing them. So what we're interested in here is the worst grade at primary grading level, and we're interested in those that had a worst grade of ROMO. So if you do that, all we're seeing now are the cases that were ROMO graded at primary but went on to secondary, by the very nature of them being in this particular report. To establish those numbers, what I tend to do is just click on the top patient identifier there and drag all the way down to the bottom of the spreadsheet there, then release. I then right hand click and copy, and then just insert a new worksheet by clicking on here. I'll widen that a little bit just to make sure that the numbers I'm going to paste in will fit into that destination column. And then once I've highlighted row 1 column A, I then right hand click again and just hit paste. And what that does, it inserts all of those cases I've just copied. And what we're about to do here is establish that there were 280 primary graded ROMO cases that were pushed through for quality assurance. Now bearing in mind that our denominator that we figured out a few moments ago was 2,821, you can see straight away that 280 cases will equate to approximately 10%. If I can just work that out exactly. So 280 divided by 2821 times 100 gives us a figure of 9.9255. So 9.9% of the ROMO cases that were graded in that particular period, that were primary graded in that particular period, went through for a QA review. So that's give or take more or less on the 10% mark.